Thanks for being here. My name is Kelsey Smith. This is my compatriot over here, Morrison. We're two of the three Olympia Music History Project group, organization. We don't know what we are. But we've been doing this project since 2022 in a few different ways. So I'm going to talk briefly about that, and then I'm going to talk briefly about some of the history that was going on in Olympia between 1984 and 1989, and then we have an amazing panel. So what I'm hoping to do is set up a little bit of context for the conversation that's going to follow. Okay, so yeah, this is a song from Gary Allen May, and we thought that would be an appropriate title for this presentation. And Markley actually just interviewed Gary yesterday, so that's going to be a new interview on the website. So this is just a little bit about the project. The original project basically was a 1 year. The Heritage Commission with the City of Olympia was looking for somebody to do something related to the music history of Olympia. And they didn't have very much money. And they originally had like $5,000, and they were looking for somebody to do something, which is, doesn't go very far. So my friend Elaine, who runs Window Seat Media, which is an oral history organization, Elaine hit me up and was like, I think we should maybe apply for this together. I'm like, I don't know. I had been working for the Timberland Library System for 15 years. I had just left, so I was sort of figuring out what's next. So we ended up doing this, and we did this for a year. We basically set up the foundation for everything. We did some oral history interviews. We developed a resource guide with like a timeline and information about all the different venues in Olympia. And then the year was up, and that was that. But I still kind of wanted to keep going. Elaine was sort of ready to move on to other projects. So I asked Markley and Mariella, who had both done interviews in the first iteration, if they might want to go in and keep going on this project. And so we became the Olympia Music History Project, slightly different name, and that started in 2023. So that's what we are now. We're not affiliated with the city now, other than we get some grant funding from them through Inspire Olympia. So yeah, I don't know if you've seen the website, but we worked with August Creative, who are amazing, and they designed our whole website. We told them what we wanted. We became fiscally sponsored through Shunpike, which is an organization that provides 501c3 status for people that don't have their own nonprofit. They act as our ability to apply for grants and things like that. And we are always looking for more funding and collaboration to expand this project. So please talk to your wealthy friends or organization. This is kind of what we've been working on lately. We started out as kind of an oral history focused project, and people keep giving us physical things, and we don't have anywhere to put them because we all live in very small houses. So we're working on digitizing a bunch of stuff and developing a visual archive with flyers and all different kinds of things. We are digitizing all 26 issues of Op magazine. Right now, the scanner we use, because of the size of the Op magazines, we come to Seattle. So we go to the downtown Seattle Public Library. So that's a little slow going, but it's happening. We've been conducting 10 to 15 new interviews annually. We have spoken to 42 different people. A couple of the interviews are doubled up to people at a time. And then we're also working on adding to the website timeline, events, band pages. And another thing we're working on is with Pat, who's also on this panel. Pat has hundreds and hundreds of ADAT tapes, and we're trying to itemize all of those and get a grant so that we can digitize them. So much good music. Those are some of the things we're working on right now. And events like this. So this is just kind of a list of some of the sort of common themes we've noticed when we interview people about the Olympia music scene. Lots of people talked about evergreen and chaos as kind of sort of starting the Olympia music scene in a lot of ways. The idea of informal sister cities, so places where bands from Olympia would go, and then bands from that place would come to Olympia pretty often. And that includes Scotland and Japan. Oh, Gary's here.
Those are big cities.
Yeah, they're not cities. All ages, like the importance of all ages events, the importance of affordable spaces, including punk houses and show houses, and sort of unofficial venues. Lots of people talk about the weather and talk about having hobbies because the weather is so horrible, and today is a really nice example of that. So, and then just so many great music and art festivals. So there's more themes, but these are the ones that kind of pop up over and over again for us. So. Okay, let's start talking a little bit about history. So we're immediately going to start talking about the Tropicana, of course. So yeah, the Tropicana opened in February 25th, 1984. And it's in the space that's now Jake's, which is kind of a whole other thing right now. I don't know how many of you have heard about that, but the first show was Be Happening, Wimps, and Young Pioneers. We have some of those people here today. And then Whiz Kid from New York City. And this is a page of Donna Dresch's zine, Dresch 84. And she wrote a little review about the Tropicana. So it says, here it is, the long-awaited and postponed opening show at the luxurious Tropicana. It looks as if something really progressive in Olympia. A lot of people were dancing. Everyone was dancing. I looked across the entire hall from the stage back, and every single person was bopping around in some sort of way. It was great. So the Tropicana lasted basically 1 year. Its last show was January 31st, 1985, just shy of a year. And that show was an all-night affair. It started at 5 p.m., 14 bands played. And the Young Pioneers and Be Happening both played the first show and the last show. And the club was closed largely due to pressure from the Ward building, which is the building right next to the Tropicana, which is now Annie's Artist Lofts. And like tenants in that area that were grumpy about kids having fun and being loud. So the Tropicana's time was brief, but its impact on the music scene of Olympia remains significant. Everyone still talks about it, and hopefully we'll talk about it tonight some more. This is a couple of flyers that were sent to us by Matt Zodrow, and he talked a little bit about Immoral Roberts. I'm really interested in the story of Immoral Roberts, so they said that the first time they played was high school night at the Tropicana. And Matt claimed that that was also the first time the Velvets ever played live. Other things that I researched, this happens a lot where I get a little bit of conflicting information, but I found something else that said that the Velvets had their first formal show at the Tropicana March 9th, 1984, and that was with Idol Worship, Death Sentence, and House of Commons. And allegedly before that show, the Velvets had only played the Thriftway parking lot in Montesano and the Elks Lodge in Aberdeen. So I'm not sure which was the Velvets' first show, but this is an interesting article from the newspaper about the Velvets talking about some of those memories. Matt talked a lot about Rick Lewis, and I just wanted to briefly mention Rick because he was a member of Immoral Roberts. My husband actually talked to me about this, and my brother-in-law Bill. On New Year's Eve, 1985, I'm sure most of you know this story, but Rick Lewis and Matt were at a show in Seattle, and there was a fight. It sounds like Matt's version of it was punks tried to stop some thugs from beating up a houseless guy. I also heard there was gangs, I don't know. But Rick got hit in the head with a nunchuck and was in a coma for basically until the end of his life. So, and that was kind of the end of the band Immoral Roberts. But I'm really fascinated by that band and their story. So, and just wanted to hold some space for Rick. This is a picture that Heather Jane sent. I just thought it was a cool picture, so most of Heather Jane's pictures are later so that she can talk about them, but this was just a picture at the Tropicana. And do you remember what show this was?
You know, I don't. I always thought it was Immoral Roberts, but I was looking at photographs and it did like tar. Mm-hmm. It could have been Fear.
Okay.
That's my other guess. I'm in the photo, but I didn't take the photo, but I should have made something up.
No, I like the impermanence of memory.
Yeah,
That's really cool. Yeah, I think this picture sort of captures what I think of as the energy at the Tropicana. So. I wanted to mention the Pacific Surf Club. The Pacific Surf Club was a little bit of a different vibe, so, but I think it's interesting because it was kind of a different group of teens, people that like to dance, maybe kind of like new wave leaning. And it was really hard to find any information about the Pacific Surf Club, and everybody would talk about the surf club. And I was like, which surf club? Like, I had to talk to like so many people, and the names got kind of like intermingled. So I spent a lot of time at the Washington State Archives looking for pictures of things. And this is a terrible picture, but this is a picture of a slide that I found that was finally like proof that the Pacific Surf Club existed somewhere. So I was really happy to find that picture after looking through lots of unlabeled pictures. So the surf club opened, the Pacific Surf Club opened in 1984. It was an all-ages dance club. It was at 116 East 5th. And it was owned by Dave Setterberg and Lauren Smith. And Dave still lives in Olympia and runs Pacific Sound. Is that what it's called?
Stage.
Pacific Stage? Yes. Really nice guy. You know, there were lots of teens going to this, hundreds of teens, and then they decided to turn it into a 21 and over venue. And they talked about the reason for that being that teenagers couldn't buy alcohol, so they weren't making any money, even though there were hundreds of teens. Several people talked about going dancing at the Pacific Surf Club in their interviews, so I wanted to include that one, even though it's not quite punk. So, there's just a couple of the articles with, I think that picture of Dave Setterberg is really funny. Dave's talking about why they switched over to not being all ages anymore. So. I did a lot of newspaper research, so this is another newspaper article. This is just like the ongoing issue of teens having nowhere to go. Like a club would open, a club would close. There weren't a lot of places for teens to exist in downtown Olympia, and that's kind of still an issue, actually. So, but I like this. I like the way this article starts. When I say like, I don't like it. They are inarticulate and probably have the weakest political clout in Olympia, but the city's downtown street kids are being heard in City Hall. And talks about how they look, basically. Okay, moving on. We're moving into 1986, 1987. And this is a picture of Gesco. And Gesco most recently was the Olympia CrossFit gym. They just moved, so now it's empty if you want to rent it. It's a pretty cool building, actually. So Gesco opened in 1986. Gesco stood for Greater Evergreen Students Community Cooperation Organization. It was an all-ages venue. It was basically an evergreen club, so they basically made it an evergreen club so that they could get money from Evergreen to pay the rent to open this place. And so it was only open again for like one school year, so in September to May or September to June. And the opening night they had I'm just going to make this is from Denise Crow, one of the people that opened it. It was Brent Lunsford from Big Happening, Denise Crow, and they're now married. Clay Zollers and Argon Steele. That's who opened Gesco. And Denise, in her interview, talked about the first event and said, at that very first kickoff event, I worked with the Senior Center in Olympia. We had senior art show also on the walls. That was pretty fun. And then I'm trying to remember the name of that swing band, but they were very popular in Olympia. And I think that was front porch swing or something. I was trying to remember the name of the band, but they kicked off the show. And then Young Pioneers played. And then a Zydeco band. We literally had punk rockers on the floor with seniors. It was a real beaut. People were dancing together, swing dancing together, and it was a really fun and beautiful event. Some of the other kind of well-known shows is Brown Towel performed with the Melvins and Danger Mouse in 1986. And Brown Towel was spoken word poetry and screaming with Kurt Cobain and improvised music by Dale Crover and Buzz Osborne of the Melvins. And the promoter heard the name wrong when booking the show, so the show flyer lists the band as Brown Cow. I think it's really funny. Kurt met Dylan Carlson of Earth and Slim Moon of Kill Rock Stars for the first time at the show. They became close friends and sometimes roommates. Nirvana also performed as Skid Row with Miss Squally Delta Product Nightmare, and Danger Mouse and Len Stat Blister at Gesco in 1987. I think May 1st was supposed to be Gesco's final night. There's some question about that. Skid Row's lineup at that time was Kurt Cobain, Chris Novoselic, and Aaron Burkhart on drums. And Donna Dresch and John Goodmanson met the band at the show and invited them to play on Chaos on the air. And their May 6th performance on the Midnight Radio Show with Donna and John is considered Nirvana's first radio airplay. Okay, just going into some of the difficulties of teens in Olympia during this time. In 1986, the Olympia City Council passed a skateboarding ordinance that banned skateboarding between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. in a 9-block area of downtown. Skateboarding was the primary transportation method for Olympia area teens without cars and a limited bus system. And then at some point they did a full ban, not even just in downtown. And not during those hours. It was for a month or something. This is another thing that happened is the Olympia City Council voted in favor of Ordinance 4764, which added additional sections to the teen dance ordinance and further restricted the rights of youth to congregate. These are happening pretty close together. This chapter is an exercise of police power for the protection of the public welfare, health, and safety of those minors that attend and patronize teen dance clubs. So, that's long. I'm going to really race through 1988 to 1990. really this should be like 1989 because that's what we're talking about tonight. So some of the things that happened, Rayco Muse Gallery at Show Venue opened in downtown Olympia. The gallery and venue started as a reaction to a censorship incident at Evergreen. Kathleen Hanna and her friend Erin installed an exhibit at Evergreen, which included photographs and art that addressed themes of sexism and the AIDS epidemic. And it was like mixed media with books, found books from the Evergreen Library. A Boy Scout troop rented a room at Evergreen, and the Boy Scout leader was upset because they walked by the artwork and saw it. And the show was taken down by Evergreen administration and damaged, and they didn't tell Kathleen where it was or anything. So she decided to start a gallery. So they started the gallery with Heidi Arbogast and Tammy Ray Carlin downtown. They took over the lease for a former auto repair shop at 112 East State from John Kangas, who was dealing with some legal issues, and I think he was actually in jail at that point. Maybe that'll be another story later. And the rent was, I think, $200. So again, they got pressure from local businesses. They would frequently call the police and the fire department to address code violations. And every time that happened, the organizers would kind of rally the community and resolve the code violations. So there were a lot of cool shows there. Early iterations of Nirvana played there. The cover of the Bleach album is a photograph taken during a Rayco Muse performance. And lots of local and touring bands played over the course of several years, including Fits of Depression, Treehouse, maybe a couple Treehouse people here, Witchy Pooh, Scrawl, Shadowy Men on a Shadowy Planet, Calamity Jane, The Go Team, Sub-Velvet Sidewalk, Melvin's, Danger Mouse, and Viva Knievel, which was Kathleen's early band. And then that's a picture of Rignall Hall, where there was a crazy show, but that happened in 1990, so we're not going to talk about it. But there's the show. I do know that people talked about the wood stove actively burning during that show, and it being a little bit scary because there were so many people packed in there. So that's what I'm going to talk about so far. And then we're going to open up our panel, and Mark Lee is going to kind of do the rest of the slides. And we have lots of cool music clips and photos from the panelists. So come on up. This is how you can stay in touch. Our newsletter is having some issues, so sign up anyhow, but we might need to switch carriers. So
thanks, Kelsey. I'd like to bring our panel up. We got Bridget Irish, Pat Maley, Chris Pugh, Heather Jane Anderson. Bridget, would you like to introduce yourself and talk about your involvement with the Olympia music and arts community?
Hello, my name is Bridget Irish, and thank you so much for the invitation to be a part of this. I'm really trying to rack my brain about things. I'm 59, going to be 60 in March. My memory's not the best, but I do have some vivid memories about the Tropicana and the surf club. And growing up here in Olympia, and I'm super excited to hear from everyone on the panel. Yeah, I just grew up in Olympia. I remember hanging out downtown, and I was about 17, 18, and I had friends who both hung out at the Tropicana and friends who hung out at the surf club. So I spent time at both places, which was really great. I was a new waver, punk rocker, or that too, just all the stuff. would hang out in the smoking pit at high school because they still had those at Timberline and North Thurston and stuff. But yeah, the Tropicana was super awesome. I remember quite a number of shows and Moral Roberts for sure. And I remember the Butthole Surfers. I remember the Canadian bands and that would run into problems when they'd hit the border and the show would run late, but they'd show up and it'd be super fun. I remember Black Flag and oh my God, Henry Rollins wearing these like sheer kind of flimsy Nike shorts. Yes, I was on the stage doing his thing, and like Nicole. So I was in a cappella band with Nicole and Lisa, Rain Shadow, when we got to play at the Tropicana. But I would go to those shows with Nicole and Lisa, and Nicole was just like, Henry, and like grabbing at him and stuff. That was like a vivid memory of that. And, I should let some other folks talk.
All right, Pat, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Pat Maley, and I ran a recording studio in Olympia since 1984 called Yo-Yo Recordings. And I moved to Olympia in 1981, and I came to go to Evergreen. I thought I was going to study science, and then I went into this. I played hand. I was a hippie when I showed up. I had wardrobe of tie-dye, drove a microbus, and peered down to my butt.
Not a hippie now.
Sure. Yes. But I was in this. There was this little recording studio at Evergreen across from the Media Production Center, which is where Bruce Pavitt started Sud Pop. When he was at Evergreen, I guess he did like a zine and maybe a tape that went with it. But there was the mini studio, and I was just there playing percussion with a friend of mine, and it had been like guitar and hand percussion, and then Connie Bunyer was there with a flute. That's when I met her, and we hadn't tuned the guitars to the flute, and so that guy Chris, I forget his last name, he was the engineer. He reached over to the reel-to-reel and he pulled out this knob, and then he said play an E, and tuned the tape to the flute. And when he did that, a light bulb went off in my head. I said, oh, that's the kind of thing I want to do. And immediately got into a recording program as quickly as I could. And then I started a studio in '84, and the first thing I recorded there was the A side of the Kitty and the Rocket record, Beat Happening. Greg Stage showed up. I was still wiring when they all showed up. But yeah.
All right, Heather.
No, I should know how to do this. My name is Heather Anderson, and some people might remember me as Little Heather back then, formerly Little Heather. And I didn't move to Olympia for any specific reason. Actually, my parents moved there in 1980, and so I was kind of deposited there and kind of got involved with the Olympia scene when my sister brought me to the Smithfield Cafe for the very first time, which really blew my mind at 13. Walking in, smelling the coffee, never smelled coffee brewed like that. The art on the walls, people having conversations, you could hear little debates here and there. And that's kind of where I got interested in being just a part of that community. And so there's more to tell, but that's my basic introduction.
All right. Chris.
So I first came to Olympia a little before the time period here. So it was more like 72, but I have to say, I met Nathan Paul. So it kind of was the start of my musical whatever in Olympia. I think I lived there maybe 4 or 5 times in my life over, I ended up there in the beginning because my dad got a job at Evergreen. so it brought me to the Evergreen State College. And they had a school there for the kids of, some hippies started a school. And it was for the kids of the faculty and staff and maybe some students. So I remember running into Nathan Paul. We were both long-haired hippie children. And we had a little face-off in the hallway. It's like, are you a boy or a girl? That might seem weird now, but that was a question kids got asked a lot. We figured it out. But, so that was my first time to Olympia. I came back after doing a couple things, I think, moving around and going other places. And I ended up back there in about 1980. So that's still a little before this, but I got a job at Media Loan at Evergreen State College. And, really Evergreen for me was kind of like that's where I started figuring out, meeting people there, and also hanging out at the Smithfield, which was, the Smithfield, the thing about that, it was great. And also in Olympia, back then, like in those early days, you could just walk around and be sitting at the Smithfield, and you'd if you wanted to start a band, you could just walk up to somebody and go like, do you play drums? They'd be like, no, you're in. Or, listen, there's a drum kit across the street at Gary May's house. You can go up there and pound on it, and we'll. So it was real, it was like easy to get something going. And let's just say that being highly skilled was not necessary.
Great. Hey, what's everyone's go-to Smithfield order?
Order? What do you mean?
The board.
Espresso,
Espresso.
where they would, I
think
think
you're
they put
gonna
like
let it-
half and half in an egg in an espresso pitcher, and then they'd steam it with a wand.
I worked there.
Oh, they.
I know. And that didn't happen till later.
Yeah.
SJ discovered that, but
Yeah,
yeah.
that was the.
Yeah. I think he invented that
Yeah.
because I saw other cafes do that after.
was a
Making the scrambled eggs in the metal steamer that you usually steam milk in.
Yeah.
Good recall.
I'm kidding, that was great.
Because then all they need is that and a toaster. And they
Yes.
could give you eggs and toast.
Yes.
I had a tab at the Smithfield. SJ, if you're out there, I'm sorry.
It wasn't as high as Ian's. I know. I've seen it. I saw the boat.
I'd like to hear a little bit more about your the projects y'all were involved in. Would you like to tell me a little bit more about Rain Shadow and maybe some other projects? The name has come up, but it's fairly mysterious.
A serious endeavor.
Mysterious.
Rain Shadow.
Was it a serious endeavor?
Yes, it was very serious. Lisa, I think, came across, or maybe Lisa and Nicole were at the mall or shop downtown. I don't know. They came across some sachets, like lavender scented or something that you would put in your underwear drawer, and it said Rain Shadow. So that's where the name came from. And then we were an a cappella group, so I don't think we ever used anything. Though we had, no, maybe we had actual coconut shells one time. Yes, we did. Probably because I was a Monty Python fan, and then I was like, let's do coconut shells. Like we're, again, 17, 18. And we had a song called I Hate Blondes. It was just, I hate blondes. Oh yeah, that's when the coconut shells came in. That was really kind of it. And then we did a cover of, what is that? First I was afraid, I was petrified. Oh yeah, that song. We played at the Tropicana. That may have been it. Yeah, but it was a lot of fun.
Do you have any really big memories from that whole scene when you were 17 and 18? Like what kind of blew your mind that made you want to get involved?
Yeah, I just really enjoyed being able to go to the all ages clubs. Again, the Tropicana, the Surf Club, and then the parties, and that were super fun. I remember when my friend Liz, who I was going to Timberline High School with, a bunch of us were going to go see Devo, and my mom was like, "No, you are not. You're not going to be sacrificed on the altar of punk rock." And that's like, but I go to the Tropicana all the time. Like, and she didn't know at all what was going on, like partying with the Butthole Surfers. I don't really need to get more into that, but there were definitely a lot of shenanigans, to put it mildly, going on. And
I think you need to go a little more into that.
yeah, I would find things in my car. Anyway, okay, I'm not going to say anything more like that. But we would follow the band sometimes. I think that's what was really great about Olympia's location. And when the sister cities came up, I was thinking sister cities like Portland and Seattle, because we were between those two, I think was a great excuse for bands to stop, even though it's just like 2 hours from Portland, but it's like, no, we're tired now, let's play in Olympia. and then let's play in Seattle. So I think that like just presented a great, what's that?
Of course, Tacoma.
Yeah, and Tacoma. Like it just was like such a great route for so many bands. Like they would play in every city. Like I'm thinking of the Sun City girls. Like, when they came through with the bus, and we would follow them. Sometimes we'd hang out with them, go along with them, and like going down to, not Enumclaw, in Eugene, Oregon. And I remember the girls there were so badass. They were all wearing flannels, like they were grunge before grunge became grunge. Because they were wearing the flannel shirts and jeans, and the guys were just kind of, milk toast. But they were like super badass. And yeah, just getting to meet a lot of great folks and stuff, that was super fun.
Pat, would you like to talk about your early projects that were active in the 1980s?
Well, like I said, I was a hippie. And so for a lot of years, I was at Evergreen doing very hippie kind of stuff. The first band I was in, I can't remember the name of it, was me playing, like a good decade before I really understood what cultural appropriation was. I was playing tabla drums. And my friend Mark Hastings and I would play at this cafe at the Evergreen campus and like sit candles up all over the place, and then we would play this like jammy music. And I was really impressed about that because like people would not clap because they were kind of blissed out by it. So that was kind of fun. And then yeah, I just ended up doing a lot of recording work at Evergreen until I got the studio, and then I started to do music using my own studio. So yeah, the first, between 81 and 84 was really just sort of me getting acclimated to punk. Because I really did show up and was very much a part of like the Heliotroop and but I think it was sort of like I got to Evergreen, it's like hippies, and then after a while I was like hippies, and then I was like, well, punks. And I was like, started hanging out with the punks, and so, yeah. And that's about as far as the train of thought about right now.
Sure. We are gonna hear and see some music from your Big Idea later.
Sure. Okay, so Big Idea was 1986 maybe? We put out an album on vinyl, and that I recorded at Yo-Yo, and it was recorded on a reel-to-reel 8-track, but one track had a time code, and we used a Commodore 64 to run all the synthesizers. And so it was, so like you could we would record everything into the computer, and then when we mixed it, we had all the synthesizers set up, and the mix would be the synthesizers, drum machines, and the tape, all then mixed down to stereo. And there was a magazine, a punk magazine called Forced Exposure in Massachusetts that we got one review, and I memorized it. It was from Byron Coley, who's still doing reviews. But the review was, if there were an acceptable branch of the new wave tree, this is what it would probably sound like. Too bad the basic premise sucks. And but the thing is, well, yeah, but I appreciate it because he reviewed it. Anyway, fast forward to this year, the guy Joshua James, who runs Antiquated Futures, the guide on Bear, right? One of my current dads. Byron Coley reviewed us in an English magazine. I can't remember the name of it. So it was fun. He gave us good reviews. So.
Oh, wow. The same guy, right?
Same guy. Yeah, 30, 40 years later. So yeah. And a big idea. I was still using evergreen equipment. Like they had a Bolek 16 millimeter, and the science department had an intervalometer, so I could do time lapse. And if you're showing a video, you'll see that the thing we did in there. And it's a video that we entered into the MTV Basement Tapes competition, and we came in third. So that band was with Phil Post, Heather Loam, Bob, who's now Moses, and Mark Hastings.
Good. Heather, can you tell us about some of your stuff? Your work in the 80s, your creative output?
Well, let's see. So the early 80s are kind of a blur.
Well, that's what we
Mostly
don't care
because
about.
I was
the early
a
80s.
child. I mean, I was 14, which I didn't think of myself as a child then, but I was. So my first creative project really was in a band called The Wimps. And I got into the band playing drums because I had taken a couple lessons as a kid and I really wanted to play drums. And I was determined to be in this band because they were looking for a drummer. Not because I did love the band, but also they were looking for a drummer. And I'm like, I can do this. I'm gonna try. And so I auditioned for the band, and I lied to the lead singer, Kurt Homan, who's in this room tonight. It's making me really nervous. Anyway, so I lied to him and told him I was
15.
I told him I was 15, almost 16, but really I was 14, almost 15. And the reason why it mattered is because in clubs in like Seattle or Tacoma or wherever the Wimps might want to play, you had to be at least 16. And I didn't feel very diabolical at the time. I mean, now it sounds terrible. I try to excuse myself saying I was really young. I wanted to play drums. I wanted to be in a band. I wanted to play the Tropicana. I just wanted to be in a band. So it seemed reasonable at the time. So I played drums, and Kurt believed me. And I played drums in that band for, I don't remember how long, not very long. We played a couple shows. Eventually Kurt found out and I was kicked out of the band, understandably. Still, it was like my first experience really like collaborating, trying to take direction, being a part of something that was bigger than myself, and getting to experience playing in front of an audience. And I was kind of hooked after that. And then I was asked to join a little band called Nisqually Delta Pura Nightmare with Slim Moon and Dylan Carlson. And I don't know that I was really, I mean, they weren't really a band yet, but they asked me to be a band with them. Like,
It's a concept.
yeah.
You got it on the ground
Yeah.
floor. Yeah.
And that was a crazy experience. There's a lot of stories there, but basically, I was the original drummer in that band, and we played some cool shows. We opened for the Melvins. I want to say it was at a high school auditorium in Tacoma, but I can't remember. But anyway. So
Was everybody there?
We could ask Janae. I thought maybe somebody might, but anyway. I was in that band for a while, and then I joined a band. I didn't join a band again. I didn't start the band, but I was asked to be in a band called Cactus Love, which was a precursor for Seaweed, and so that was Aaron Stauffer and Steve Ross in Green Apple Quickstep. So I played drums in that band for a while too, until I moved away. So that was kind of I was in other bands. Kurt and I were in another band called It for a little bit. We played at Community World. Cactus Love played at Community World. As well, I got the Poetic Nightmare and played at Gasco. So those were just that's some of the contributions I made, musically anyway.
That's hefty. That's big stuff. Awesome. Chris?
Okay. I'll try. Well, I got to say, my memory's fuzzy too. Although, okay, I know a couple of things. One is that I ended up in Olympia again, like in high school or something. Now, I know exactly how this story goes, but there was me and Ian and Nathan were in another a high school called Off Campus School, and I think we wanted to start a band then. And I know that there was this guy who kept showing up, dropping off his girlfriend at that school. He had a mustache. That was Tom Shoglin. But he also had a car, which was a real bonus because we didn't have cars and we were also not old enough to buy beer. But Tom was. Okay, I might have moved to Seattle at some point and got a job as a dishwasher at some place. And the first day they were like, Chris, can you come in and clean up a rat? It's underneath the bus tub. And I was like, there might be something better for me back in Olympia. College, or a rock band. So I ended up going back again and hooking up with Tom and Nathan and Ian. Oh wait, I was in a band in Seattle for a minute called the Hors d'oeuvres. And I think we played one show, maybe in Olympia. So I went back to Olympia, and I hooked up with Tom and Nathan and Ian. Somehow we started practicing in Nathan's garage, and so all of us were, at least we thought we were pretty punk, and we decided we might want to wear some dog collars to look more punk.
Right.
And
As we do.
And they happened to be made by this company called Zodiac Pet Products. So we started playing under the name of Pet Products. We were, we were still kids. We were all still teenagers at that point. We started playing. We wrote a bunch of songs. We got our first show at this club, I think called the New Delhi. Gary, was the New Delhi? I think Gary worked there. Maybe he managed it. Gary got us our first show. And
You came for an open mic, and you were the Jello Tones.
the Jello Times. Well, there you go. Can't remember, like I said, it's a little fuzzy. That was the Pet Products. We didn't release anything until 40 years later. Thank you, Slim Moon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, we've got a record out. It's available on all the usual outlets. Pet Products. You should. All the streaming services. You can hear it.
It's very good.
Is it? It's good.
I
Oh yeah, it's not bad. The recordings, the tapes sat around in Nathan's garage for 15 years. They were a little rough around the edges. We tried to bake them, but I don't think it worked. The sound quality is less than ideal. But anyway, yeah, that was the Pet Products. We played around. I think we played for about 2 years in Olympia. Did a bunch of shows. Came up to Seattle, played a bunch. Eventually, it was, as I recall, it was really fun. And in fact, I think we're going to play. Oh wait, we're playing here in Olympia. With Heather.
Down,
We're at Tacoma.
That's it. We're a little older, and now, but we could still, we can still play. Right.
But after Pet Products.
Well,
I
right,
did
I was
one.
just getting to that one. But,
Oh.
so, yeah, so we were just kids, and there were some issues, and there was some infighting, and I remember me and Ian, we were hanging out with the same girl for a while, and then. Yeah, I think he put a safety pin to his cheek at one point to try and impress her, but and I think it worked. But so there was some things happened, like some thievery and stuff, and things got a little weird, and I decided to leave the band and form the Young Pioneers. Or it might have been that they formed the band that invited me.
But you got into Young Pioneers one way or another.
I did. I think I started out playing bass or something like that.
And were you really chomping at the bit to play the first Tropicana show? Did you know it was going to be such a...
Right. The Tropicana.
You were hip to...
Are we talking about the Tropicana now?
Well, didn't Young Pioneers kick off the...
We did. Maybe you visit the first and last. So I think here's what happened. I remember walking around looking for a place that we could have a show, with the Wipers and the Young Pioneers, and we saw this hall, and it looked like it could work, but we didn't know how it would work. We needed some money, and we asked around, and we had a friend, this guy named Larry Roberts. He was going to ask his parents for the money, and he did. And some of that went into starting the Tropicana. I don't remember exactly, but I don't think I was chomping at the bit to play there, but it maybe. And the Young Pioneers, we had a good run. I remember in that questionnaire it said, talk about your successes. Well, we put out a cassette. Hey, it's pretty good.
One of my biggest regrets at Yo-Yo Studios, I had the Young Pioneers booked, and then I canceled it.
You canceled it?
I did, yeah.
Was it anything personal or just?
Well, I'm gonna be real vulnerable. At the time, punk scared me. And y'all scared me.
Even the Young Pioneers?
Well, immediately after I got to know you, and I was like, why was I like that? Why did I cancel? And I thought, oh, I'll get them back in, and then I've always regretted that.
We got you, babe.
just didn't come together.
Listen.
Yeah, I was a timid, I showed up in Olympia at 19 and was a little timid hippie.
We were scary. I get it.
Punk was a whole new thing to me. There was no punk where I came from that I got into. So, yeah.
Well, what could have been?
Yeah? Wow. So how did you all get by? Living creative lives? I mean, rent must have been at least, what, $80?
Have you ever heard of the Caddy Shack?
The yogurt farm?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There was some names and places where you lived and how you got by living there.
Do you want us to start at the beginning again?
I said whoever's ready. You seem like you're ready, Heather.
How I got by was my first job was given to me by a woman named Nancy Sigafus when I was 14. She actually came to my junior high a couple of years prior, and in our art class, she taught us how to do silk screening. And she owned a silk screen shop downtown in Olympia called Dice T-Shirts. And I saw her at the Smithfield one day. I had seen her since that day in junior high when she taught us that class. And she said, "What are you doing here?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm drinking coffee. I'm playing in bands. I'm trying to like I don't live at home anymore." And she said, "Do you need a job?" And I said, "Yes." And she gave me a job at Dice T-Shirts and paid me above minimum wage, which was amazing for the time, under the table, because SJ and Tess, who owned the Smithfield at the time, would not give me a job. They were like, "We can't give you a job till you're 16, so stop asking. You're not gonna work here. Stop. It's not."
Should have lied.
I should have lied. It worked for the Wimps. But they wanted like proof. The Wimps didn't ask for like proof. So anyway, she gave me my first job, and it really sustained me. I mean, that's how I bought food and was able to offer people money for places that I stayed. And then I also I was the first person that worked at the little Rainbow Pizza window. She opened that window and said, "Do you want to earn some extra money?" So I sold pizza slices out the window of the Rainbow. And then finally, when I turned 16, the day I turned 16, I walked into the Smithfield and said, "Okay, I'm 16. Give me a job." And as Jay said, "God damn it. Okay, you're hired." And then I worked also at the same time. I worked at Positively 4th Street Records.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and got to know Win and Dan very well, and also Jim Morrison. If anybody remembers Jim Morrison.
I see everybody nodding. I know what you're talking
Yeah,
about. Anybody not know about Jim Morrison at Positively 4th Street? Yeah.
So there were a lot of stories about what happened, and we said her back then, but I don't know how she identified, but she identified as Jim Morrison, so I just called her Jim. But there were some days where she would, when I would be at work, she would call me Penny, which was apparently a girlfriend of Jim Morrison's. I'm not a big Jim Morrison fan. That's another story. But and so that was a really interesting experience. And Wynn and Dan introduced me to a lot of music that I wouldn't have been exposed to. Etta James, Lucinda Williams. Of course, I was exposed to tons of punk rock just from where I lived. But that was pretty incredible. And so that's how I made a living and was able to pay rent for the most part. And yeah, I worked at Town Tubs too. I worked anywhere I could make money.
Yeah, Win used to make me mixtapes too, from at Positively 4th Street. He'd just like burn all the stuff on the sets and give them to me. It was great.
Yeah, he's character.
All kinds of like really old 60s, like, not mainstream stuff.
And the great thing about that record store, there was also Rainy Day Records, but it was on the west side, and it was like, there was the east side Olympia, and there was downtown, and then there was the west side, and Rainy Day Records was incredible too. Yeah. But it was, Positively 4th Street was right downtown, really accessible if you didn't have a car or didn't want to walk, and he carried everything. I mean, so much punk rock. I mean, and that he really supported the scene in that way.
Totally.
Yeah.
He knew that I loved Blondie, and he would get bootleg albums and like have them behind the counter for me and let me know. And yeah, that was super special.
Rainy Day Records used to play Big Young Pioneers video. We had a video.
Did you have a VHS tape for sale?
I don't think so.
On the merch table? Beta? Okay, another thing on the questionnaire here, topic was is anyone you would consider a mentor? We're talking about Lynn just now, but anyone that has made a big impression on either you or just the community in general that you.
Yeah, I mean, Calvin Johnson. Somebody said you should talk to him and see if you can record him. And as I said, I invited him to the studio. Then he brought Greg Sage in to make that recording. And then, you know, I'm in the supermarket a couple months later, and I see it inside a Spin magazine. I'm like, oh. And then I told him, you can bring anybody here to record, and I'll just record you. And then also Lois Maffeo made a big impression because I ended up in a band with her in the late '80s. But she was always very like in the scene. She kind of was like, "Oh, hi, who are you?" and was very inviting and very curious. And so I appreciated that about her, and always seemed to have wisdom, and she was very polite. So I appreciated that.
Do you want to hear about any other mentors?
I do. Please.
I wasn't really talking about Lynn as a mentor, but he did. I mean, he did expose a lot of music to me and other people because I would go into the Positively Poor Street and you just didn't know what was going to be playing. Do you want to talk about mentors?
I mean, Gary.
Yeah.
Because, you know, when the Pet Parts just, you know, he gave us our first show. And also, you know, he seemed so old back then. You know, that he kind of, you know, what? I know, that's true. But I don't know, you know, if I can name names exactly, but I gotta say, just like everybody in the scene back then, all the different local bands that were playing, everybody did ended up playing at the Tropicana. It's like, I was taking all of that in a way, all those people were mentors to me. Not just musically, but sort of ideologically too, to the scene, to what the vibe was, you know, for the time being pretty inclusive, I would say, for the time, you know, and I think it fostered sort of a DIY and an attitude in general so.
I would echo that. I mean, the whole culture was maybe supportive of DIY and seeing different communities come together. That's what it made Olympia kind of incredible to me when I look back. When Pat's talking about like Evergreen and being a hippie, and then there was like the punk rock scene, and then there was like the different, like the K scene, and they all kind of they meshed together and just made a really vibrant community where it seemed like anything was kind of possible if you were willing to try and create something. Like if you just wanted to do it, you could find the right people in whatever part of the community to kind of make it happen.
Totally.
Yeah.
The punks and the hippies finally came together at the Meadow. The
Best parties ever.
I remember driving past the Smithfield early on and being like, wait, are those punks or hippies? And that's when I started to notice that it was melding.
Is a little more fluid than that. Okay, meadow parties. Let's go.
It was like the graduation party at Evergreen, and it was a big, technical extravaganza, and I never did psychedelics at that, but I believe I was one of the few people who did it. Yeah, and it was like light show, and it was very the heliotrope crowd, that whole scene kind of.
And it was in a beautiful meadow.
Yes, a beautiful meadow on the path between Evergreen and the beach.
Scott took acid when we played.
Oh.
I remember that. I also remember somebody band maybe burning money in one of the fires, and also Richard was naked in a tree outside of the fire site. Remember Richard?
Mushroom Richard.
Yeah, Mushroom Richard. So after one of the parties, he was outside the caddy shack up in a tree naked for a long time. Howling.
Feathers, come on.
That's a different guy. That was the feather guy. Who was incredible because he would come to punk rock shows at the Tropicana with these beautiful feathers. They must have been handmade, and it was like he had two wings, and he would dance to like whatever music was there, and it was incredible.
Are you
Yes.
sure those aren't the same people?
No, it was not the same person.
Richard from maintenance at Evergreen?
He didn't do the. Did he?
Yes, he did.
Thank you, Casey. Casey should be up here.
He had like a victim from Evergreen eventually.
I just didn't know it was the same guy. It's a.
I think that
Okay.
it's been around still. Coming.
We can still ask him then. But it sounds like Casey knows.
And he's still around.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Still has feathers. Yeah.
I never got to tell you how I lived back then. Okay, so
Yeah.
the caddy shack was only $100 a month, and there were 4 of us living there. It had a visqueen roof, and a lot of times I'd invite people over for a barbecue and just say, bring some extra food.
Was that on Puget?
No, that's Puget Street House. Caddy shack was out on Cooper Point. Like it was literally a caddy shack right on the edge of the golf course. It had a toilet seat out in the outhouse out there that had golf tees embedded in it. It was plexiglass.
Because it was stolen from the golf course restroom.
Yeah, a lot of people had to use that when there were parties there.
I worked for a company called Morningside, and me and this woman, Bianca Wolf, would drive around state buildings. They had contract with the state, and we would collect recycling. And one time we came upon this place, and they had pallets of color, like topography maps of every coastline of every county. And I grabbed the San Juans and Thurston and took those home. And then another time I found this big book that was a hand-drawn map of I-5 in Washington State, and each page was a mile.
Wow.
And I wish I still had it, but when I got kicked out of the yogurt farm, where it was like 7 people lived there, and I think for the last year I lived there, we just stopped paying rent. And eventually we got evicted because of noise.
Wow. Noise over rent.
Well, they gave up on getting rent from us.
Bridget, how did you survive being a creative youth?
I worked in a warehouse. I drove a forklift and I counted boxes. And then I was given an ultimatum by my parents to go to college or go to beauty school or floral school. And
Oh.
I picked floral school because I didn't want to touch people's heads. And so I went to Portland for a little bit and went to the Western School of Floral Design where my friend Laura had gone. But Laura went into hairdressing too. Like all my New Wave friends went into hairdressing. Yeah, I went to Evergreen later after Sunshine College, getting chased by rednecks and stuff like that. Now
I did a lot of
question.
childcare work.
Did you ever clean the dorms?
No, don't do that.
What about hacks to live on the cheap?
Sorry.
Just while we're on that.
Will you show up at the caddy shack when you know Chris Pugh's having a barbecue and people are bringing food? I was talking to my friend who came here with me tonight and talked about what I ate as a young person in Olympia with not a lot of money, but white rice. You get white rice, little cheddar cheese, rice vinegar, and Bergers, and you eat it. And it sounds terrible, but I might try it again just because. But that was a big staple. I don't
Brown rice? It's more nutritious.
It was too expensive and took too long to cook, and I didn't know how to cook. I mean, I didn't know how to cook. rice was pretty much it.
Brown rice is a little harder to cook. I would say.
It just takes longer. It
Takes
takes more the same
patience.
amount of water.
Patience.
I volunteered at the co-op and got the discount.
Hey,
Yeah, I was a cashier there starting in '84, and I stopped being a cashier there in '23 because I volunteered for 6 years and then I worked there for 33 years.
this is one we like to circle back to in this project. What do you recall about the national and local politics in the mid '80s, and how, if at all, did the political climate shape your creative work?
Rock against rape.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's kind of it.
I distinctly remember the threat of nuclear war and the anger that there were just like a couple people who could decide that. And I remember the zines I would get about just the amazing collages people were doing, and I was getting into collage from that, from the punk scenes, zines, and yeah, I think that was part of too going to the shows. It was really great. There was the energy. The surf club, we would do stuff that would enhance the evening and that, but the Tropicana and going to the shows in Tacoma and Seattle, the punk shows, were just like the energy that was just like such a mix of different emotions, and like from anger to just like freedom and movement and this frenetic energy that was so awesome. And I just really appreciated having that outlet too against the man.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was huge collages in Olympia with Reagan's face that people, did graffiti on, and just say no, and Nancy Reagan, and Rock Against Reagan, and
Don't register for the draft.
don't register for the draft. How did we forget that OM song? Amazing, Kurt Holman. One of the best lyricists ever to exist. So,
True.
I was in that band, but I don't think I was paying as much attention to politics. But there was a definite feeling in the air of just like the energy. And I think one of my first records, I'm almost done, was Let Them Eat Jelly Beans.
That's what I was just gonna say.
Oh, it's so good. You guys can buy it. You should. You
No,
should.
the Reagan administration gave rise to great punk rock protest music
Yeah.
throughout, really, and Olympia too, in its own way. For sure.
What aspects of the Olympia music and art scene do you think have been left out of the dominant narrative? What do you most want others to understand about the history?
Well, what is often not mentioned is that, like Bert Wilson was sort of a world-renowned player for people who were into that style of jazz, and that scene was pretty vibrant. But it was, it maybe didn't blend as much with the punk and the hippie stuff. But yeah, I guess also at Evergreen there was a lot of experimental music that happened.
True.
Because they had synthesizers and the studios and stuff like that. So.
But it's so fun to think about all the crossovers too, because Bert Wilson's partner, Nancy, I took clarinet lessons with her.
Do you still play? Clarinet? Did you bring it?
I'm so appreciative of this project and what you're doing to really explore the depths of what Olympia was like during this time, because I think it really laid the groundwork for movements that I think to the mainstream might seem like they just appeared, and that a lot of people in that environment, they just made it happen. But there were so many people that came before, and before the 80s even, that kind of really created an ecosystem and environment to allow Olympia to continue to produce some pretty incredible things that I don't think would have been there without all these stories and that people are sharing. So that's really cool that you guys are doing this.
Yeah. To be married. So, Pacific Surf Club, Bridget, you said stuff, and then moved on. The Pacific Surf Club did stuff. What
I
was?
work for the state. I can't say certain things.
Okay.
We had a lot of fun.
We know what you're
Okay, but the contrast though, because they existed around the same time as Tropicana. What's the contrast? What were how were those spaces different? Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I would say when I was a kid, I remember what do you say? It's a seminal moment when I saw Blondie on, I think it was called the Friday night special or Saturday night special. It wasn't Saturday Night Live. It was something that
Fridays. I think it was just called Fridays.
maybe it was Fridays, but I saw them playing, and I think I was, I don't know, 12, 13. And it was just,
Yes.
what is it? Yes, yeah, that's what it was. And it was amazing. And that's when I fell in love with Blondie, and I was like, this music is awesome. And so then I was checking that out. So it was just really great when, the surf club, we had a place to go dance and stuff. But I was interested in all kinds of music, not really hippie music, but, or country western or that. But I was totally into rock, Led Zeppelin and the Doors, and but also into punk, and because they just had these crossovers, and the groups were distinct. Like there wasn't much crossover between those who hung out at the surf club and those who hung out at the Tropicana. Like I had different groups of friends that never crossed over, which is interesting to think about. But just having those spaces and the things we did in those spaces or around that. Like as I said, my mom is like, you can't go see Debo, but I'm going to the Tropicana all the time. And it's like, parents just like, I mean, I'm sure so many of us at that time, like our parents weren't paying attention to what we were doing. And yeah, so many times we came so close to really getting into trouble with the police, the Olympia police, but we'd get out of it, like getting stopped when we're high on mushrooms. I never drove. Okay, maybe I did, but we get out of it, because we're just like being dumb kids, whatever. And it was that at the time we could do that. I forget what the question was.
About the differences, how did Surf Club compare to Tropicana?
So yeah, I would say different. Also, drugs and alcohol use too. Like Surf Club was just like we were taking stuff that just like what felt good, like really good. Like, hey, you look beautiful. I love you too. Yeah. And then the Tropicana was like, oh, like pounding beers, sometimes, and but loads of friends. But not always pounding beers. There are a lot of straight edge folks too. So
Sure.
yeah.
I had an interesting experience with the Pacific Surf Club, and it's amazing. I love your story because I didn't know that you were doing both. And I say doing both, but they were they seemed very different at the time. Like the kids that went to the surf club were like from my old high school that I dropped out of, the jocks and maybe not cheerleaders, they probably didn't go there, but like more affluent, just, kids of yuppies. That was my experience tonight. And then the kids or the people at Tropicana were kind of anti-establishment, and Pacific Surf Club seemed very establishment. I don't know how else to say it. And there were some fights. There were some violence. And that happened.
Gangs.
Surf club gangs. Well, I'm pretty sure the person or the people that pushed Scott Burrows through the Tropicana window were from the surf club. Yeah.
Bastards.
So there was like a kind of a rival thing going on.
Well, and it's so interesting too because what I'm realizing now too is I think, well,
And this was
This is
early
hard to
surf
say.
club. This was
Yeah.
early.
early, yeah. I was about to say the surf club was more queer, but it wasn't. And the Tropicana was a little queer, maybe not as much as the surf club. But you're right, because the surf club, there were those groups, so the more affluent, the jocks, and like kids with more money. And then there were those of us who came from families who didn't have much money and were like dysfunctional, alcoholic,
And
or like had queer parents
But
that you couldn't talk about.
But as usual, the jocks, those people were the loudest in the room. So that's what seemed to come across most.
Yeah, I can see that, because
Yeah.
they weren't doing the good drugs.
They also weren't very cool.
No, they weren't.
Would you say they were basic, if you were describing them now?
I don't know. I guess if I had to.
You don't have to.
You don't.
They were preppies. They were preppies, and we were punks. But there was a whole different thing going on that I didn't know about. So that's super interesting to me.
Well, who performed at the surf club?
Well, later, I think later on it became something different. Punks did kind of take it over when it sold. And I wasn't there then.
Yeah, because it was like the Pacific Surf Club, which was all ages and had a really cool dance floor that would light up underneath it, which I think carried over into the Malibu Funk Club, but then was the North Shore Club too for a
North
bit.
Shore was in a different place.
North Shore Surf Club, different location.
It was.
It was on 4th between Washington and Capitol.
It's like where the chocolate place.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, I don't know that.
But so where was Pacific?
It was on 5th, wasn't it?
Oh, no. North Shore was on 5th between
Between Capitol
and Washington. Yeah.
I lived across the street from the first surf club in the Martin.
So it was on 5th.
And, yeah, that was.
It's like maybe they were the same. Eventually it became Thekla.
Now we're getting out of territory that it's past mid 80s.
Oh, no, yeah.
No, I think maybe they were all in the same place.
I think that too.
And I remember going to a thing there that was called the Stairs, and I saw John Lee Hooker.
Chris, I know you were there for the first night at Guestco. Was
Was it?
anyone else there?
First night at Guestco?
Uh-huh.
Because Young Pioneers played it?
Yeah.
I don't ever remember going there.
It was where Big Idea played.
But
our
I
first-
might.
Big Idea's first show.
Yeah,
at
it was at
Guestco.
Guestco. And I remember seeing Screaming Trees there for the first time. Remember seeing the Wipers. Remember seeing the Habany play.
Suzanne.
Yeah.
What was the vibe? What was the? Can you paint a picture?
Yeah,
of
it was-
Can you take us there?
Well, the thing I really liked about it is like if you were on Evergreen campus, you could pick up any phone and just dial 4 numbers to get any extension on campus. And they had one of those phones down there. So if I was downtown and wanted to call someone up at Evergreen, I'd just go off and can I use your phone?
Oh, wow.
So was that, and I remember Brett Lunsford being like, yeah, we're doing this thing, and he was really into it, and I really appreciate that. But yeah, it had a real, it was very open. It just seemed kind of fun, and because it had Evergreen's backing, it felt like it was this is going to be here for a while. They got some like institutional staying power, but I guess it kind of came and went with the people who were doing those individual contracts, and that was their individual contract or something. So.
They had some great after-hours dance parties there too.
Oh yeah.
I think I didn't live in Olympia anymore when it was Guestco.
North Shore and Pacific were the same address. Sorry.
North Shore Surf Club, Pacific Surf Club. Same address. Team dance ordinance. How did that affect anyone's life around here?
What year was that?
That
I wasn't
came
a teen
into.
anymore.
You weren't. No, you were of age. I think everyone here was probably 1987.
I wasn't dancing with any teens.
I went anyway.
Yeah.
I definitely wasn't a teen in '87.
Was anybody skateboarding at that time?
Yeah, I knew skateboarders, and yeah, I wasn't 21 yet.
Yeah. Were they getting
Yeah.
arrested all the time?
Well, no. I mean, at that time, the Olympia was like empty a lot of the time. Like you could just walk around at night, and hardly anybody would be out, and it was so awesome. We'd go up and hang out on the Capitol campus, and sometimes doing stuff. And State Patrol would come out, and we might get a little, but they'd just be like, just keep it down. Just keep it down. The governor sleeps there. Okay. It was super awesome. I don't remember that teen ordinance. Because I remember, I mean, there were just like house parties and stuff. They
Yeah,
would go
that-
to, so it's just like, whatever. Like
That's the culture.
That's the crazy thing about Olympia is there's so many different experiences. Because I remember a big crackdown, not with skateboarding. I mean, they made the law, and we knew skaters, and I think we knew people that got ticketed maybe, but nobody, I don't think was arrested. But there was a point in time where it seemed like police were they weren't cracking down on the rockers which is what we call them, who drive around 4th Avenue and do the loop and like yell at fuck you punk rockers, all that. But
Remember the kids renting the parking space?
yes, and that's what I was going to talk about. I had a picture of that. So people like Mark Whitaker, yeah, like you couldn't,
awesome.
like you couldn't loiter, I think, or I can't remember the details, but it was like you can't loiter anymore because kids would start hanging out on the street and on Fourth Avenue, like in front of Positively 4th Street, and the cops would be like, "You got to get out of here." Well, Mark, I think he was one of the first people. And Ted, but Mark had a car. He was like one of the only people who had a Volkswagen. Oh, Kurt's gonna correct me.
Do you remember when we set the lawn chairs up in the parking spot?
Yes.
Out the car? To
Yes.
protest the,
That came, yep. So Mark had the idea to rent the parking spot so we could hang out there. So we'd all just hang out on the van, and then whoever had the brilliant idea to put, thank you, Kurt. Yes, I remember now.
that's when the Daily O showed up.
Put lawn chairs in the parking spot so we could hang out.
Yeah, I remember seeing that at the Olympia.
And there was a little police brutality going on. I witnessed something kind of great. That's for another story. But there were some, and I'm not saying that lightly. There was a few extreme things that I witnessed with the police and experienced myself actually. So
Yeah, there was sort of a hostile vibe in Olympia when I first got there. I remember going into a pawn shop and asking, "Oh, can I see that Super 8 camera? Can I see that one?" And the guy was like, "I'm not going to stand here all day and hand you cameras." I was like, "Okay." It was such a funny little town. Like there were no awnings over the sidewalks. There was a secondhand store on the corner of Capitol and 4th that had you had these gigantic old wooden doors that you had to lift to get them open, and everything was in boxes on the floor. And Bayview was a place called Market, which you took a grease pencil and you wrote the price of the canned item on the can. And like the linoleum was all shattered up and the lights didn't work in certain areas. It was kind of spooky.
Sounds funky.
Olympia before Evergreen was a really different place. I mean, the effect the college had on the town was huge. And there was a certain towny versus ringer vibe that I'd experienced a couple times myself.
Yeah, sure.
Walking the streets of Olympia, there may have been some names.
Yeah.
Could have been some things were rolled at me.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I had a friend riding her bike and somebody threw a dead crow at her.
Yeah, when I was in the 3rd grade, My mom was washing dishes. We lived in those apartments that are on Division, like the townhouse apartments and that, and she was washing the dishes, and I don't know, for some reason I just like proclaimed like, when I grow up, I'm gonna go to Evergreen. And she stopped what she was doing and she turned and she's like, no, you are not. But I did, and then my sister did.
Let's chat, if we can, for a moment about Reco Muse for those of us who can speak to that.
I saw a lot of good shows there.
Yeah.
It was an odd-shaped space. I think it was like partially under a staircase, and yeah, it's where I first became aware of like Kathleen Hanna. I remember having a conversation with her in the parking lot. But yeah, I just remember going to a lot of great shows.
Okay.
I can't remember any in particular. In fact, earlier this year, after we did the thing at Evergreen for the Yo-Yo Go-Go, I was thinking to myself, and it's as if a part of my brain said, do we really need to remember all of these details about the 80s? And I kind of went, no. And I'm here.
Here we are. Well, I guess, so this is all happening, like we're wrapping this up before we get to the era where, say, International Pop Underground Convention happens. But as these kind of, well, now we're recognizing them as historic music venues, and they did bring in groups from out of town that were some renown. Were you all seeing this and thinking, oh, Olympia's getting a little more clout? Or were you aware of that unfolding at some point?
I was just gonna say I had the opportunity to go to Europe in 85, 86. And I remember seeing on the newsstands, what is it, NME, New Music Express, and there was Beat Happening on there, and I was like, what? And so that was super cool to see that.
Yeah.
I left Olympia in '88 and moved to the Florida Keys. And I remember, I think he was on the cover, Chris Cornell was on the cover of Spin magazine. And I was like, what is happening while I'm not there? Like, all this stuff is happening. This is crazy. And then on my way back from living in the Florida Keys, I lived in Corpus Christi, Texas. And I had the unfortunate experience of having to work at the Olive Garden because I had to make money, pay rent. And it was such a weird place to work. A lot of kitchen help. There was a lot of like sexual innuendos and sexual harassment. And you'd go to get I was a waitress, and you'd go to take your plate of food, and they'd say lewd things like, do you want bologna? And you'd say, because it was Italian, Olive Garden. And what? Do you want to blow me? And
That's hospitaliano.
yeah, so that's also another story, but staying relevant to the question, Nirvana came on the radio, and they all started singing along. And I just went in the bathroom and was in a rage, because these were the people that the artists that I had known and were against, and just hearing the kitchen go crazy and singing to Nirvana. For me, I was like, it's over in Olympia. Like, it's over. Meaning there was just no going back to what it was. It became something else.
That reminds me of when I went to grad school in San Francisco. I don't know what compelled these people to do it. It was like a couple guys that when I first got there, they would sing at me when I went to school in Olympia. And it was just, oh my God. Okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
I remember a point where it was sort of like, oh, there's like A&R reps crawling around Olympia, like looking at different bands, and eventually that ended, and I felt a sense of relief, like the spotlight being on Olympia in the way that it kind of, or the edge of the spotlight,
Yeah.
Nirvana becoming so big, and yeah, after that it wasn't sort of building to that. It was a fun and exciting thing for it to build to that.
Yeah.
But then afterwards, the festivals, the yo-yo festivals, kind of would bring it in and kind of have that connection. But we would still, put on house shows and be excited about each other's bands. So, and that's still kind of true now.
Yeah.
So
Definitely. All right. So, what inspires you today, and how do you see threads from the Olympian music scene in the 80s and 90s continuing to influence local culture in the present?
I think the thread is still there. Like I was just saying, is that I think bands still they realized that happened there in the 80s. And the way that like K Records built up to putting out records instead of just cassettes, that sort of became the blueprint. Like, oh, where did you get it mastered? Oh, K-Disc or Bill Smith. Where did you get it pressed? Oh yeah, Bill Smith Custom Records. And I think that, it spread to other places. People put out zines about doing that kind of thing. And I think it's still there. I think people are still making bands. And I'm in 3 bands right now. I'm in the 3 of the best bands I've ever been in. So it's, it's kind of, I feel like it was a good place to invest my heart into and stay there.
I don't know about the lingering part in Olympia because I don't live there, but I still have friends that live there, and occasionally I'm in a couple bands and we play there, and I don't know what's going on in Olympia. I get the feeling that it's probably still pretty vibrant, and when we play there, we haven't been welcomed into any house shows because we're playing with our contemporaries, and I don't think they used to have house shows. If they do, I'd love to play one.
Yeah.
And what inspires me musically is I still play drums. I just had a reunion with one of my all-girl bands from the 90s, and I sang in a...
Which band?
Rotten Apples. So we did a reunion. The reunion just ended. It lasted a year. It was really fun. And then I'm in a band called Jaguar Paw, where I sing and write a lot of the songs. And we're playing with the Pet Products in Olympia at McCoy's on February 14th. So
Hell yeah.
there, I did. I plugged it. Plugged my show, our show.
Nice.
Pet Products.
The Olympia Music History Project inspires me. The people are doing as much work as they do. Friends who have bands inspire me. One of my bands is the Lincoln Elementary Community Band. We have a gig once a week where we play Friday mornings at the Assembly. So I've got a show where 300 people show up and sing along every week, which is pretty great. So that's real inspiring to just watch, kids this big come up and quietly read a poem. That's really great. I got invited to play in a band called Bud Cake, which my friend Sari calls Brandon Punk. I think it's my first punk band, like bona fide punk band. So, we're about to put something out, so watch out for that. And also my longtime collaborator friend, Mary Sharp, who I'm in a band with now called Guide on Bear. And we're about to put out our 4th album.
Now the memories are coming back. I was like, oh my God, no cash value with Mikey and Aaron. And there's someone else. Oh my God, Jim? Yeah. Anyway,
one thing I was thinking about, Kathleen was mentioned earlier. I've been in a few other bands, but I did a lot more performance, I have to say, it always stuck with me. Slim put on like a spoken word event at the Capitol Theater, which my friend Jen and I, when we were going to Evergreen at the time, we participated in that. And I think Kathleen was doing something too. Kathleen and I knew each other at the time, but I remember Jen and I did our piece. And when I left the stage, Kathleen walked by me and she's like, I thought you were gonna get naked. And it was like this challenge. And so my performances, not soon after that, but grad school was like I was naked. Like I would just be naked going into the audience. So like, but I think about that, like that. Well, there's painting my butt and doing shamrock prints, but there's also Mission Impossible, which was a reverse striptease where I'm naked coming out and I have my clothes and stuff tucked under the seats. And I would just jump into the audience. But just thinking about mentors, like she wasn't necessarily a mentor, but she was a challenger. which she was, because we lived together for a little bit too. Yeah, she's a challenger. But yeah, I just wanted to share that.
One other not mentioned music thing in Olympia was Timothy Brock, who composed pieces for silent films that then they would show at the Capitol Theater. And that eventually led to him working for the Chaplin estate. And he for like 2 years had first rights to conduct the Modern Times soundtrack. And I did a lot of recordings of the Olympia Chamber Orchestra playing those compositions for soundtracks for old silent films.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
We've got some media to share. All right, so let's see. What have we got on film? Oh, it's everyone's names. All right, everybody write those down, please. All right, here's a video from Big Idea. If I just push this, does it start?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Go
some versions of that have the MTV VJ, the guy who's from UW,
Okay.
and he says this sarcastic thing about Olympia. So if you look it up online, you can see that.
Here comes Chris.
Have you seen this before, Chris? Is there anything you'd like to say about it?
Well, there's our cassette, and there's a picture of me.
Okay.
I think it's a long video.
Let's
Fast forward to the good part.
So I think it's just remarkable that this stuff, survived. Bands that didn't have a metric fuck ton of money able to make some video happen. It's pretty great. All right, this is from the Pet Products 40-year delayed record. I gotta say, seeing that performed live at we did an Olympia Music History Showcase back in August, and I remember looking around and everybody was just floored by that performance. It was beautiful. So definitely check out the next pet product show. And are we with Heather again?
I think she stepped out for a moment.
Okay.
I'm sure she'll be back. We could listen to a little bit of her music while I was waiting.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've been to college, taken some LSD, and you think you know what a trip is. But we ain't no usual trip. We're a Wisconsin death trip, and we're gonna show you what that's all about. Come on down with me. The black walls where the men buried their wives in the brick walls. I'll take you to a place you thought you'd never see. If you come on down, then come on down with me. Yeah, I'm talking about the year 1899. This whole country had gone crazy, particularly Wisconsin. Nobody noticed because they were all too crazy to notice. Fuck, we voted for Taft. If you think you wanna lead a life of sin, I'll take you to a place that you have never been. Show you all the ropes and cattle mutilation, going crazy along with the rest of the nation, yeah. We were pillaging women, we were raping towns, we were mutilating children and having our way with farm animals. Having a bad time doing it. Come along, know the state. Come along, I can't wait. I'll show you bleeding baby on a burning cross. I'll show you what it's like to hear the voice of God.
All right. So that's you on drums, Slim Moon on vocals, Dylan on guitar, Dylan Carson. Okay. And what are we looking at here?
This is me. There was no bass.
There's not?
No. We didn't need bass. Couldn't find
Olympia,
couldn't
man.
find a bass player. Who cares? That's Nancy Sigafus, the woman I talked about who owned Dice T-shirts, who really showed me at a young age so much going on in the community because she did T-shirts for bands and businesses.
I see Death Squad in the background there.
Oh yeah, and that's me pricing records or writing a receipt. She also has a piece of pizza there from the Rainbow. And then that's me and Karen Dako, who has since passed away. She was a big influence in my early life too. A really great friend, a person, and that was at us at Capitol High School. So I'm about 14 there, and she's like 15 or 16.
Okay.
We were going to the Tropicana event. There's me and Donna Biddle, before she's Donna Dresch, in the alley at the Tropicana. The picture on the right, I was referring to the Reagan era, so those were posters and art that really cool people put up all over Olympia, and that's my friend Michelle and me.
All right. Good. Did you put any of those up ever?
No, I didn't. I printed some.
There's still time.
It's still time. Yeah.
There's still
Reagan
yes,
still
there's a whole
sucks.
new era.
25.
And this, I didn't get the picture, it was too blurry, but what we were talking about, people rented parking spaces to be able to hang out. This was kind of a precursor to that.
Some good loitering.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. On the right?
Oh, that's just me and Vince and at Capitol High School. And I went to high school with Toby and Heidi and Karen, and yeah, they were kind of the mods, and then there were the punk rockers back then. So
Cool.
that's my friend Justin skateboarding downtown in Olympia, probably during the ordinance. He didn't care. And then this is the Smithfield Cafe at Olympia. Friend Ian, there at the Smithfield.
Terrorist.
Cactus Love with Aaron Stauffer from Seaweed, Steve, and myself, and then Donna, Heather, me in the middle, and then Heather. That's when we had to start differentiating between little Heather. Heather Lewis was the original Heather, of course. And she didn't have to be called Big Heather because there wasn't another Heather. But then I showed up, and then I had to be Little Heather because you didn't want to get stories confused. Was it Little Heather? Little Heather doesn't really be happening. Little Heather is a punk and annoying. And then Punk Rock Heather, and then Heather Love. So it was like so many Heathers. So there's two Heathers right there.
Did they make a movie like that once?
They did.
Yes.
And there's me playing drums at the Smithfield Cafe with Cactus Love.
And that's the last slide, which brings us to the end of our event. What has everyone learned today?
The 80s were fun.
Yeah. Thank you, Amy. Thank you for being here. Of course, you can find more stories at olympiamusichistory.org. Thank you so much to the Washington State History Museum for putting this out, to our wonderful panel, Bridget, Pat, Heather, Chris. Thank you also to Roxy for volunteering to video all of this for TC Media. In-kind sponsor loaned us all of this equipment so we could put some of this stuff on television down in the Oli. And hope to see you again here in the summer.